me. Do you mind if I join you? Are you sure you don't mind? You're absolutely sure I won't be disturbing you?
All right, let's shoot this fucker.
Great.
Hello and welcome to the Mental Suppository. I'm Bret Herholtz,
I'm Jamie Billings.
and we'll be joined at some point by Andrew Shanley, but our guests tonight are filmmakers Andy Sawyer, Bob Heske, Joshua Leonard, and Skip Shea, all of which are filmmakers who work in the Massachusetts area. But I'm holding off from saying the word local filmmakers because I feel like that stigmatized and that sort of, you know, it just keeps people at a certain level. Whereas I feel like a lot of you guys, you've done films for film festivals and you've posted it online. It's just like it's a global thing. You know, I had a friend once who said, you can do your work in Worcester, but but your work goes out all over the world. So that's why I won't say the word local filmmaker.
Gotcha. Right.
Yeah. So thank you for
Go
being
ahead
on
and
the
do
show.
let's do the introductions of all the people that we have here.
Yep. So I'll start with, I'm going to go around the room alphabetically. So I'll start with A.
Am I the only A here?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. All right. Well, my name's Andy Sawyer. I'm an artist and independent filmmaker. I've been doing this, far too long, several decades, multiple decades. I work. I love the format of short film, and I work in digital video, mostly practical special effects. And I specialize with my brother in doing micro budget special effects, like practical effects, the prop building, and that kind of thing.
The best kind of effects.
Yes, computers are for enhancing, not for full creation.
Exactly.
Not,
Yep.
not all the time. I mean, unless it's absolutely necessary, obviously. But yeah, computers are for putting the full moon digitally in the background, making it look better as your actors, run from terror from practical zombies.
We always
Right.
need to have the Bruce Almighty moon there.
Yeah. And when it's superimposed like an Evil Dead, you can see the little square around it. In the Blu-ray version, anyway.
Yes.
Next.
Bob.
All right, I guess it's B. I'm Bob. My name's Bob Heske. I actually met Bret probably 10, 12 years ago. I was buying a lot of his artwork based on some of my films. So I've done several shorts, started off as a screenwriter, got a couple shorts produced. More recently, I did a feature drama called Blessed in 2015. And then in 2019, I did a documentary called Afraid of Nothing, which is a paranormal kind of bent to it. And today, what I'm working on today is a podcast based on Afraid of Nothing. It's called the Afraid of Nothing Podcast.
All right, Josh, you're up.
Cool. I'm Josh Leonard, independent filmmaker. I made a bunch of different films over the years. Been doing it since I was a kid, like probably most of you. I was a DP for a while, like a DP for hire, and then finally kind of came into my own as like a writer director in the past 3 or 4 or 5 years. I mean, I've always strived for that, but with like the Worcester Film Wars that came up 4 or 5 years ago, it really sparked me to really pull like a lot of my resources together and build teams. And since then, I've just been really just trying to keep the momentum going with friends and collaborators, and fortunately getting some accolades along the way, which helps to encourage. And I'm an artist as well. I have a day job, but I I also try to keep all the different creative juices flowing as much as I can.
Skip.
I am Skip Shea. I'm also an independent filmmaker. I actually, it started almost accidentally. I did a theater piece, a one-man show back in 2005, which kind of morphed into film acting in the Massachusetts area. But then I got in the union too fast, and then it's nothing but background work. locally. It's really hard to get any speaking roles, so I then just decided to start making my own content. And then 10 years ago, I made my first horror short, Micro Cinema, which really went a lot bigger than I had ever anticipated. So I did a sequel called Ave Maria, which did even bigger. And then oddly enough, it did huge in Italy. And then I did my first feature is Trinity. I followed that up with my second feature, Seeds, which is in the festival circuit right now. And I also made another short, which is kind of a proof of concept for a series called Priest Hunter, which is just, short and violent. And I'm also the executive director of the Shauna Foundation. It's actually the Shauna E. Shea Memorial Foundation, but and we one of our programs is the Shauna Shea Film Festival, which is a local film festival.
That's fantastic. And we are joined by our third head in the mental suppository, Mr. Andrew Shanley.
Hi, guys.
Hi,
Thunderous
Andrew.
applause. Thunderous applause.
Yay. Okay, going around the room, we'll start with Andy and talk about what you've been up to, especially with lockdown and COVID, some of the projects you've been working on as a filmmaker, just trying to stay busy, and maybe talk about, what have been some of your favorite projects over the years. I know I knew you in, not a secret, but I knew both Andrews back in college, and I always knew you as a very talented artist, but I didn't, it wasn't until later I found out you did filmmaking as well through your sites like Boomaster, and I loved like the trailer you did for the movie Ichabod. But I just want to know, it's like some of the films you have kept up with through COVID, and some of the favorite projects you've worked on over the years.
Well, obviously the COVID changed everything, but
Oh, yeah.
because I actually had a project lined up with Drew and yourself.
Yes.
And it just like, I saw it coming. I was actually kind of proud of myself for seeing that this is going to be a problem, and I shut it down early, and I felt like maybe I shouldn't have shut it down early, but as soon as I shut it down, the world shut down.
Yes.
So,
And then there was no stopping it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it put it on hold. Let's put it that way. But I have been able to do. I kind of immersed myself in the 15-second short horror films because I just been coming off of winning fourth place in Lloyd Kaufman's Traumatic Film Festival choice number 4. It was I not only cracked the top 10, I made number 4. So and I found that news
amazing.
But thank you. I found that out on Christmas Day, so I was still kind of riding that excitement.
Official trauma director.
Yeah, exactly. My daughter's in it, but she gets killed quick in the background, so we won't go there. Yeah, it was a 15-second film, and that was just like more fuel for the fire. So I ended up, I shot a couple. I was like a one film in with my friend Allison, right before the whole world shut down, and that one was in last year's festival, and that actually won gold and silver. Gold for the best kill and gory kill, and it won silver placement overall, which was kind of cool. But like you said, since the lockdown, I got kind of like everybody else, you got a little bit like claustrophobic and kind of down by the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
I made a film. I worked on a short little steampunk animated bird puppet short. It was like 7 minutes long, called Lovebirds, and it was completely animated, and it was just something completely different that I would go down in the basement and like just do sets with there. I could get away from the world and just work on it a little bit. And that's like the one thing I did this year that I did like literally all by myself. The other ones I had help with my brother. Like I said, we were making some. I ended up making 5 15-second films, 1 7-minute bird animated feature, and I did it. I just, even though I knew it wasn't really any hope at all, it was like a Hail Mary shot in the dark. I did the Roger Corman 2-minute challenge, which we put out to the world, where it was like you had to shoot everything on a phone, and it had to use like house lights and people who lived in the house, and I made a pretty cool feature. It got a lot of buzz, but it didn't go really anywhere. But I was able to use that short film, and I extended it and then made it into part of an anthology film for Halloween because my Halloween was taken away. I plan on starting Halloween July 5th, right after 4th of July. And the next major holiday is Halloween, so that's when I'm going to start celebrating.
I can attest that, especially with Andy, he lives for Halloween. Halloween is like his. Halloween's his Christmas, and
I remember on his website he would have a countdown to Halloween, and I always thought that was great. It's like from the moment the day Halloween ended, there'd be the countdown would start, and I thought that was always fantastic on your website.
Kind of like that mantra there of when Halloween actually begins.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
On July 5th. I enjoy
Halloween like starts for him like right after like Easter, essentially.
You get 4th of July, it's respect, and then boom, gone, Summerween, man, to begin. You start carving a watermelon,
Awesome. No, you mentioned Roger Corman, who's always been like a favorite filmmaker of mine, who's always been kind of an interesting cat, just because he made like a lot of the schlocky B movies, but he also made like these really great adaptations of Edgar Allan Poe starring Vincent Price, and a lot of them were like some of my most favorite films of all time. So just finding out that you were in a Roger Corman film festival, or you'd entered in it, is I thought it was it's very impressive.
I actually did it because it was almost like one of them once in a lifetime things. It's not an annual thing because it was the Corman's quarantine challenge. So
yes,
I figured if I didn't do it, just do it.
Right, absolutely.
And I don't regret it.
But placing fourth place in Troma, that's another one.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was kind of that was like it's stupid to say, like one of my favorite books about movie making is the everything I learned from the Toxic Avenger. I literally actually, my gosh, it's right here.
Oh, yep, of course.
Right on top of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
So, and it's corny, but it was just like that. In recent years, I've done a feature film, when we worked with Lynn Lowry I'm sorry, I'm moving the whole entire here. My world's got legs down there. Yeah.
God, I'm nauseous now.
He's always nauseous. Don't pay attention to him.
But he sounds great. You're right with the microphone.
Right.
It's just my rich baritone voice.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll have to step into my microphone.
But yeah, I've been working with Andy for years, and one of the things that I've always been impressed with him is just his innovation of coming up with creative concepts with low budget stuff. I mean, even no budget stuff. I mean, we've been working on movies, short movies for years, and he'll make his. I remember being in college, and like he'd be like making his own guts and blood in the kitchen of his apartment. And like, hey, let's go out and we're gonna get somebody all bloody and make a movie, and we'd shoot a movie, and we'd be out in the woods with somebody and they get like completely bloody, like covered in like guts and everything. Like, yeah, we're hungry. You want to go to McDonald's now?
Yeah.
And we'd all go to McDonald's, and one of us just looked like we're like chased by a serial killer. It's
that was
great.
funny. In the college ages, you can kind of get away with that. When we got older, it's kind of like, well, maybe we shouldn't be stopping at the gas station. We actually had that werewolf movie. We actually put coats over the young ladies because they were like saturated in blood factor. You got to get the car because we're not going to get back to we're not going to get to the destination if we don't gas up the car. But we can't have these women.
The best I think was like the police officer that saw us, and he's just like,
oh yeah, and you had the blood all over your car, roof of your car, and I know you never forgive me. It was a newish car for him, and I like completely.
Yeah.
Did you have the hands dangling out the side as well?
I was just thinking the same thing myself, like maybe a dummy hanging out the back of the car.
I remember the time we were driving into Boston for a movie, and Andy had his van, and we filled it up with skeletons and body parts. And we're driving through Boston on the turnpike, like literally just stuff like body parts and
you could just open the door and like accidentally spill out a couple of bones. Oops! The car behind you was like, "Holy shit!"
I can just imagine the guy in the toll booth. Like, the hell with it. Just come on through.
Yeah, we had
Pass him a couple of finger bones.
You know, I just remember a friend of mine, Billy Coyne. He obviously isn't here today, but he told me a story like his car got stolen, and like the cops called him like later, and they said, "Hey, we found your car." And like Billy Coyne, he if you know him, he does like makeup effects and prosthetic effects. So just the idea of just like whoever stole the car and like, you know, open up the trunk, goes like, you know, like sees like body parts and things like that.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I've known Andy since college. He was actually, when the first time I met him, I just was like taken back. What a talented guy. You know, like I said, I only knew him through like his cartoons. I found out later like a lot of his filmmaking, but it's like I was immediately taken by his imagination and his just creativity at what he did.
Yeah. You know, that's part of the thing, especially when you're like in college and you're like a filmmaker. It's all about just coming up with a concept that you can at least shoot and edit and put on public access. Those were the days.
That was the I think that's probably, I mean, I really hate like talking about myself. This is extremely uncomfortable for me. So
okay, I understand.
You probably can't tell. But like I think probably the one thing I could say, like I don't remember the last time I was never working on a project. I mean, I was ever not working on a project. It's always something. I mean, right now, obviously, we got like 3 of them going. We did like the 15-second things, and I can juggle that. But it has always been something going on. So I guess that's my secret. I don't know.
And when you do good work, then more good work comes to you.
Yeah, essentially.
And
I just noticed in the background, I enjoy your Freddie Ruxpin.
Watch my show, and you can see me making him.
Yeah, Andy actually has a show called Andy's Little Sci-Fi Horror Show, which actually
really?
is on YouTube, and he has like 500 episodes. What's the episode count right now, Andy?
I just I think it's 547 and 548 right before we started here, which is one of the reasons I was bouncing back and forth between the Ghost and the YouTube and waiting for this and playing in television.
Yeah, because he has tons of behind-the-scenes stuff on that.
Yeah. So yeah. But anyways, like I was saying before, like I think also another thing is I like to I kind of ran the gamut over the years. I started with the short stuff and the serious, scary short stuff, and then I did move into the comedy half-hour stuff. Like I did a trilogy of 3 half-hour films about a killer snowman called There's No Escape. Try Googling. You might get something. It's absolutely hilarious. If you get the poster, it's awesome. That's one of those cases where the poster is, the best part.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, between doing that and like I said, doing some feature-length, serious, more attempts at horror with some name stars and stuff. I guess I've done a little bit of everything. I feel like I'm hogging the conversation here too.
Oh, that's okay.
No.
We will. So yeah, actually, moving on to Bob, we had mentioned Bob had done a couple short films as well, but also hosts a podcast. So Bob, you want to talk about the films you've done, because you said you started off as a writer, but you sort of got into directing and producing as well, or directing at least.
And a shout out to Skip. Actually, my second film, Afraid of Nothing, was in his film festival.
I know.
And it won, I think, Best Experimental a couple of years ago. That was great. So thank you for that. I didn't get to meet you in person. I don't think I was there to accept it for some reason.
No.
But yeah, it was cool. It was a great festival and a great memorial to your daughter, and it's just so well run. Really, really an excellent film festival. So for filmmakers out, do you still do that, Skip? Is that still running?
Oh, yeah, yes, we're early bird submissions ends tomorrow.
Yeah, that's one of the ones you should submit to if you're a filmmaker. So, because I mean, some film festivals. So when I did Blessed, I submitted to probably a whole bunch, and I got into maybe 6 or 7, right? But it's really hard to get into film festivals because a lot of them just do it for the programming. You need like a name star or something who's going to get fannies in the seat, and you weren't like that. You really really focused on the story, I thought. So kudos to Skip. So yeah, you're right, Bret. I started as a writer. I mean, but I'm late to the game. You guys all knew each other in college or whatever. I didn't start till like 40. I started running a bunch of screenplays. I won or had finalists. I did pretty well in some contests.
Well, Alan Rickman didn't start really getting big until he was like 45. So
yeah. Well, I've got him beat. My first film I made when I was 50, actually. So my first film was called Blessed, and I actually what got me off the dime to make my own film and actually fund it, or most of it, was my mother was had Alzheimer's, and I thought, she didn't recognize me at that point. It was like, this could be me 20 years from now, and I never did what I said I was going to do. So that actually kind of spurred me to do it. So I made that first film, and that was crazy. I literally decided I had like 6 months of pre-production. I actually had the film made a 2-week vacation during work. So I still had my day job. So I scrunched it in 2 weeks. I took off during work, worked my tail off, and then it was post-production for a year and a half after that. That was a really crazy experience. And then there was a year for the film festivals, got some distribution. The distributor ended up being kind of crooked, never really paid me, but I was too poor or going through a divorce and couldn't like sue them. Right. So,
my shocked voice.
Yeah.
It's just screwing you up, money anyway.
I've heard those distribution stories.
There's a whole and I had like a lawyer. I had a lawyer, and he redlined like crazy the contract. But if they're not going to follow up, if they're not going to pay attention to the contract, then they're going to dare you to sue them. And there's always these things in your contract agreements that say it has to go through a third-party arbiter, which is like a producer guild or something, So, anyways. So that was kind of bittersweet. It was positive. The film did great. It was on, Amazon Prime for a while. They a year ago started taking shows off, so it got taken off there, but it's still on some other platforms as well. And then I decided to make the documentary. I made the documentary about the paranormal, and I enjoyed making the documentary more because that was more controlled. When I did the film, Blessed, I had a really good crew, but I pretty much stepped back. I wrote it, I did all the producer stuff, but when it was filming, I stepped back and I let the director and the cast and crew manage it, and then I filled in. I'd have input here and there, but mostly let them run with it. But when I did the documentary, Afraid of Nothing, that was me, one camera, a sound guy. That was basically it. And then I had an editor that I used. There are actually 2 editors on that film. But I enjoyed that more because it was more control, it was at my pace, and it was a lot of fun. And then when the pandemic hit, I pretty much had no more money anyways because I just got done with the divorce. So I started focusing on a podcast. I figured I'm going to be alone for a while. So I said, you know what? I'm going to talk to people who normally wouldn't talk to me. And 50 plus episodes later, it's going really well. And what I did was I based it on my second film. So as a way to drive people to watch the second film. So it's the same title. I promote the film and do all that. So I use it as kind of a marketing ploy. But yeah,
always smart.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it takes a while to build an audience for a podcast, Bret. I got to tell you, it took me I was happy to have like 15 or 25 people, and then eventually it went to 100, and then it went higher. And when I finally got on a show, there's a guy named Jim Harold who has his paranormal podcast. He has like over 50 million downloads. He has like two podcasts he's known for. One's the Paranormal Podcast, and the other one is called Campfire Tales. And when I was on his show, then there was a huge spike, and then it started getting momentum because he has such a bigger audience.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So that's kind of one tip to like get people to do it. So yeah. So, I mean, that's me. I'm kind of on the podcast thing. Will I do a film eventually at some point? I kind of hope I do it as a writer versus as a director producer because it's just at this point in my life, it's easier,
Yeah, you're no spring chicken. I know exactly how that is.
Oh, God. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think with you and me, Bob, I think we've met because you bought my an illustration I did, the Spaghetti Strand Murder, which I ended up turning into a graphic novel shortly thereafter. But you own the original. Yeah,
that was in Spencer. It was this was it an art gallery or something?
Cormier's Jewelry when they used to have
Cormier's Jewelry. That's right.
They might still have an art gallery. I don't know. I don't go to Spencer a lot, but
so my father is an artist too. He's 91 now, Bret, believe it or not. But he was actually he would go, but he still got his faculties. He still paints, But yeah, I would go and support him, and I saw your Spaghetti Strand, and I was a big Edward Gorey fan, and it kind of drew me, and I loved it. And I bought that. And then for a while, for about 9 months, I kept going to Bret. Okay, I did a film. Here's a concept. Draw this for me. And I was like 9 or so pen and ink drawings you did. I was like, wow, it's great. So yeah, I was stalking Bret for about 6 to 9 months.
I
at a
didn't
time.
mind it. I
work.
always
Dude,
appreciate
I used
the
to
work.
do that
but-
when we were 10 years old. I'd be like, Brett, can you draw this little thing for me?
Yeah.
That's phallic, Jamie.
Garfield shouldn't have that there.
But yeah, I mean, so it's like I ended up finding out Bob, you were doing you ended up doing a lot of the films and now the podcast. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I mean, I got to tell you, it's very cool. I mean, some of the people it's weird because, so on the paranormal, I don't know if you guys watch the Travel Channel. The Travel Channel, they should really call the Paranormal Channel because it's all these paranormal programs,
Yep.
you know? And
Yep.
I get to like see people that have been on my show or that I know that are on like a haunting. You know, there's a couple people I know from a haunting where it's like based on a story that happened to them. So it's kind of crazy to watch that channel.
Yeah,
And
I can't watch a haunting by myself. I can't.
Maybe that
Really?
channel
You,
just
Jamie?
base.
Yeah,
Maybe that
even
channel
it
just
does kind of
basically
creep me out. It does.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love that.
maybe that channel stole your idea, man. You know, they might have said, "Hey, that guy's got something I want to use. Let's do that." Yeah.
Bastards.
Well, it's funny. One of the producers for Haunting, I just talked to her because I'll get people working on the podcast. I'll get emails from people that say, I moved into this house and this weird shit's happening. What do you think? You know, should I make a documentary or what? And I'll say, well, you got two choices: bring a shaman in or a medium to kind of clear the house if you feel at risk, or if you want to document it, then I can put you in touch with a producer or whatever. You know. So,
Oh wait, it's just the cat.
yeah, yeah. So it's funny, Brett. I moved to Westminster and I'm like a minute down the street from in Gardner. There's a house called the Heske Pierce Haunted Victorian Mansion. It's been on supposed to be one of the most terrifying houses or whatever. Great history, and not far away when I was staying at my sister's in between getting a house, the Conjuring house. The Conjuring series.
Yes.
That house is in Harrisville or Berg, something, Rhode Island.
It's Harrisville. Yep.
Yep, Harrisville, Rhode Island. And then there's so there's a bunch of little haunted houses around here that there's a lot of cool history in Massachusetts.
Oh,
and in New
absolutely. I
England.
mean, even in my hometown, we had the whole Hammond Prouty murder, which was all it's still there's like a whole they wanted to think there's like a whole paranormal thing behind it, and that was just always a fascinating case if anybody wants to ever look it up.
I
Wow.
live 6 minutes away from the SK mansion in Gardner. I live in Gardner.
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Really?
I live 6 minutes away from that SK mansion. I took the tour. I got some great photos inside of.
Oh,
You know,
God.
Oh, that's fantastic.
They renovated it. It was very close to being condemned. And then a rich guy kind of bought it. And then he hired the people that are in my documentary, Skip. There's a section about afraid. I have chapters in it. And one section is on afraid of ghosts or afraid of haunting or whatever. And so the people who did it's a husband and wife, Ken and Mimi Watson, and then Marion Luama. I don't know if you met her, Andy. But they totally, when I filmed, they were early on in renovating, so you could kind of still see some of the bad stuff going on. But that house was like almost condemned. It was very close to. I mean, the roof was going to fall in. There was like
Wow.
almost a foot of pigeon poop up there. A bunch of pigeons living up there.
Probably was condemned.
Yeah. So
It weighs down after a while.
but it's a cool place, definitely worth visiting. Andy, the Gardner Hotel or the South Gardner Hotel across the street from the SK Pierce is haunted too, allegedly. I don't know if you knew.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know that. I've seen that. I mean, I read that in. So I have a collection of ghost stories myself. I'm big into that as well.
Yeah.
It's beautiful in there. But you're right. Before they started renovating, it was a little sketchy, especially the third floor. The dumb waiter. I think they called it the laundry
Oh
room.
God, I love buildings that have those old things like the dumb
God.
waiter, or stuff that was just like that turn of the century.
Well, Gardner's known as Chair City, right, Andy? So it's like SK Pierce, who wasn't even he was like number 3 out of like furniture builders, but he was, but it was also right by a train station. And there's this whole backstory. Andy, did you buy the book? Ken Watson made a book and he had like a book signing a couple months ago there, right across at the South Gardner Hotel. I don't know if you knew about that, but he wrote.
I didn't know, but I would have.
Yeah. So there's 2 books. One is Bones in the Basement by Joni Mayhan that talks about that's a great, she was on my podcast. That's a cool story about the family that bought that house before it got renovated and just crazy stuff going on. And then Ken and Mimi Watson, Ken, the guy who renovated it, he did a book just about the history, less on the ghosts, more about the history, because he felt like the Pierce family were kind of getting like a bad, a bad reputation. So he spent a lot of time just going through back papers and all this stuff. But yeah, that's an amazing place. It's great to check it out if you're in Gardner, to get a chance to look at it. It's still haunted, definitely haunted, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's what you can almost. It's so. I'm trying to think of the word. Imposing when you're near it, even when you're going like to the downtown to down.
It's like the Munster. It's like the Munster's house, right? The front of it, like the Munsters, And Andy, did you ever see in the window? There's a ghost boy that looks out a window. Did you ever see that how long have you been in Gardner for?
Oh, many years. I always look up at the windows. I mean, I can't say I've seen anything, but I mean, some pictures I've gotten were amazing. It's just so funny because I took one of the tours. And I actually filmed episode footage of it, and I've been sitting on that footage for years. And I just looked at the file, and I was looking at some back episodes. I like to pepper in some old ones, and I'm looking at this footage, and I was going. My wife and I were walking through the house, and I had an infrared camera, and I had the sound thing going on. They were very welcoming. In fact, I can't. The name is escaping me. Shame on me. The woman who wrote Bones in the Basement.
Joni Mayhan.
She was actually in the basement. I believe it was her giving that part of the tour. And she talked about a book she was writing. This was many years ago. I've been sitting on this footage for quite some time, and I should just cut it together.
You should.
It inspired me here.
Yeah. Did you? Right down the street from you is the Murdoch Whitney House in Winchendon. Have you ever been there?
Yes.
That's a haunted. Yeah, that's a haunted in Winchendon, which is now known as Toy City, Gardner's Cheer City. So down there's this couple. They bought some properties. They were given some properties from foreclosures, and a guy named Don O'Neill renovated them. And they have ghost tours there. It's which are going to start again once the pandemic is over. It's really, really cool place. Really, really fun to take a camera and to get some footage as well. Really, really great. A lot of character.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Moving on to a friend of mine I've known for actually ages now. So much so my father, my dad and his dad actually used to work together for the same garage.
Wait a minute. Really?
Yep.
My
friend.
Is there a chance he knows my dad too?
Probably not. Unless he worked polar, but Josh Leonard.
Yes. We go way back, man. Like, in fact, our dads just hung out last Thursday.
Oh, did they? I didn't know about that.
Oh yeah, no, they hang out like once a month. Like they go to breakfast and stuff. Yeah. We go way back. In fact, so you're like what, 4 years older than me, something
about
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So seeing you draw when I was a kid, 3 or 4 or whatever it was, inspired me to start drawing. And that's been one of my things for most of my life, being an artist and everything. So thank you for that inspiration.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Just, seeing what you've done, doing films and everything, it's just been fantastic.
Yeah, see, before that, I always thought I was going to go into comic books, right?
Yeah.
I thought I was always going to be like a comic book artist or something. But somewhere around 12 years old, it clicked to me. I don't know why. I had some sort of epiphany, and I was like, I have to make movies. And because I've always loved movies, and I loved making props and costumes and doing makeup and stuff like that, and we always did haunted walks, and it was always a thing. And I'm like, well, it makes sense to photograph this stuff too, So
I think I remember you telling me a while back you did set design on Spooky World for a while, or
right out of high school.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I was remembering that right.
School, when they moved from Berlin in Massachusetts to Foxborough. I was 18, and I knew a guy who worked there, and so he brought me in, and then I started showing my artwork and stuff, and so they started using my drawings as the blueprints in a way, because they didn't have blueprints, and so they'd blow up my sketches, on these big boards, and they'd have these armies of carpenters, and they'd be like, okay, and they come up to me and be like, okay, so you want this 20 feet high? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds good.
Wow, you just ran into being an architect of Spooky World.
No,
that's
but
awesome.
believe me, I have no architecture skills, whatever. It's just
me neither. I understand.
They just needed a vision, and
you need a 50-foot clown that looks creepy. Okay,
I could do it.
We built a whole gutted castle and stuff, and it was based on So that was that.
That's amazing.
That's
It was
awesome.
cool. So there's through people I met there, I got to sort of travel the country for a bit, building haunted houses and fun houses and stuff like that. Being be an artist, but always with they were like, we can bring Josh on because he's not like in the haunting world. He wants to make movies, so we don't have to worry about giving him our secrets and stuff. So it's like,
I never felt threatened.
you know what I mean? Like, gotcha, cool. But had lots of adventures that way, and just kind of moved on and made a bunch of different short films. Like, actually met some friends at Spooky World while working there that have culminated in lifelong friends that I still collaborate with now today. In fact, a few years ago, I went to Canada with one of the guys that I met there. They have a podcast now. It's a big podcast it's like a true crime podcast called Missing Maura Murray. And so we were actually in Canada, like looking for her, making a documentary with like this renowned author and stuff. And so just been on tons of different adventures, like over the years, doing all kinds of different stuff. A bunch of features that were made along the way in various capacities. Like, I was a writer director, but I was also like just a cinematographer or just an editor. This past year, like the COVID year, I did sound. Like, I was like the boom operator on a short film, for a few weeks. And that was cool because I'm not used to, kind of doing that kind of arena. And that was neat to stretch my legs that way. And in January, I was in Brooklyn doing a camera for a Viking opera.
Wow.
That was shot in a blue void in a studio in Brooklyn. And we shot a feature in 3 days, which was wild.
That's fantastic.
We rehearsed for a few days, and then I was one of 3 cameras. So, we're doing all the coverage and this and that, and playback, and they're all singing, and it was it was interesting. It was very wild.
It almost reminds me a little bit of the Frankenstein they did with Johnny Lee Miller with Benedict Cumberbatch, where it was that very almost experimental sort of
It was film theater.
Film theater.
Yeah,
they did stuff like that, like the very steampunk looking thing that would come through at one point of the Frankenstein film. It reminds me very much of that. So that's great.
I think they're going to get background plates in Iceland later this year, but like the forests and stuff like that. Hopefully, it all matches. But it reminds me of something like what was that movie that came out like just when they first started doing like the big like blue screen movies? Oh, was it Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow?
Yeah. Oh yes.
That was what do you call it? That had some charm to it.
Yes.
Because it was like that was neat before everything became kind of like very fake and blah blah blah.
It was steampunk before like steampunk.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it had a very like 40s aesthetic to it.
Yes. What did they use? Was it Laurence Olivier at the end there? They resurrected his face. Or
they
something?
did. I don't remember.
Was it him? I always
That's
confuse.
something for the Google.
Yeah, Laurence Olivier or.
Well, I know they did Oliver Reed with Gladiator when they took his face and put him on that, but they could have.
Yeah, well, it was just like this, the big bad guy at the end. They just had this disembodied head. I think it was Olivier, but I could be wrong. I confuse.
Let's see, the Alec Guinness or Olivier, interchangeable British guys.
Well, nowadays you can basically deep fake anybody. So
Right.
Oh gosh, that's just crazy.
It's like grab John Wayne's head and put it on there.
I got an app. I do it with myself on the phone.
Well,
You
talking
can do
with
it on your own phone now.
Well, talking with Andy and both Bob, you've also done a lot of the short films, and not only that, you've done short film much like them. You've done short films really damn well.
Thank you. Yes. What the big catalyst for me was, at least in the past few years, was the Worcester Film Wars.
Yes.
And I was very much apprehensive about even trying to do it. And the very first one in 2016, and leading up to it, I was just hemming and hawing because my good friend Sam, who's like my partner, and we create all this stuff together. For years, we were talking about, we've always worked on productions together, but not like our own thing. So this came along, and I was just like, I don't know, man. Like, am I gonna try to pull all this stuff together to do this? He's like, yeah, let's just freaking do it. And so I didn't even have I had an idea at the time that I've been kind of like milling around for years. Anyway, so that came along. Of course, it's akin to like a 48-hour film project where you have to make something. It's 72 hours.
Or a 24-hour comic jam. I'm thinking of that.
Right. Yeah. So what was cool about that is I wrote it on Friday. We shot it on Saturday. I cut it Saturday night into Sunday, and then handed in. The next weekend they show it, and it came out really, really great, and it won. The judges.
Was this the Rift?
The Rift, yes.
That was a great movie.
Thank you. I'm really proud of it. In fact, that's like the prototype for hopefully the movie that I'm going to be remembered for. Like, I want to make that into like a big movie, like, Inception or something down the line someday.
Was that the movie with the married couple?
No. That was the one.
I like the one with the married couple.
Oh, Pistachio?
Yes, that was the one.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. That's actually most people's favorites.
Oh, is
Believe
it?
it or not. Yes. But the Rift just gave me a big whopping heap of confidence, and like it won the judges and the audience award, and I was just like, okay, I guess I do have some stuff. All right, let's do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from there, other people were interested in like reaching out to me to like direct other stuff, and we won our other awards, and then we kept doing the film, the Worcester Film Wars, and kept winning, except for 1 year.
I know.
So 3 out of 4 I've won, and it's Worcester, but still it's.
I was so pissed off about that when you told me about it, and when I saw the film that won, I was just like,
I know.
No.
I know.
No.
Well, that particular year, they were judging on how well you use like your specific element.
Bullshit.
I know, right?
Sorry, yeah.
No, I know. I think people there were getting sick of me winning, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not.
But when you're good, it's one of these things.
Yeah.
You should be celebrated for your talents, not because you use so many elements or
Right.
who
Well, look
in
at this,
Worcester
yeah.
or whatever
Yeah.
else. I saw that. I was like, no. It's like what made me think about it when he did Turtle Boy is like, Batman. The '89 Tim Burton Batman film came out when we were still young.
Yes.
And I got as much as I could tell the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight, with the way you did the costume, I could tell like the Michael Keaton Batman, the Michael Keaton Batman movie, because I remember you actually, as a kid, you did this great Batman costume based on that.
Yes.
And it looked, I was so jealous.
I was a huge Batman fan.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
Huge. And that scene, like the Turtle Boy movie, was an amalgam of sort of. I mean,
it was great.
It's basically the opening of Batman '89.
Yes.
It basically is, but it's got some comedy in it and blah blah blah. And, actually, we were this close to not even shooting it because like my bad guys didn't show up, like the bad guys who were supposed to be in the movie.
Oh,
and
man.
so like people were on their way, and I'm getting ready to call them like, man, don't even come because I don't got my actors. And at the last minute, I'm like, nope, I'm doing it. Like, I'm in it. I'm the guy now.
That's the spirit.
Yeah,
that happens a lot.
And it's just, well, because I'm a ham. I mean, obviously. I mean, it's
You have to be. You
yeah,
have to be.
I love performing. I love jumping in. And so I was just like, screw it. I'm going in. Like, and so we did that. And yeah, all those things, like, they're always the most wonderful thing you ever do, and they also kill you a bit too.
Oh yeah,
all those things, especially trying to make something like very, very quickly. So it was kind of devastating when that didn't win, even though like I get it, it's not a big deal.
How'd you end up doing like those flyover scenes in Worcester?
We had a drone.
I had a feeling. I just wanted to say drone because I didn't know how insulting that was.
No.
Okay.
a buddy of mine had a drone, and I'm just like, he's like,
Because
anything.
those were impressive shots.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
they just like it just looked very cinematic.
Well, that was the idea.
I know, but still, it worked. It just
That
like
was the hope,
this
yeah.
felt like it felt like that
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan.
Hey, guess
Yeah,
what?
you
Good
superhero
job.
sweep. Yeah,
Well, I think one of the big things, obviously, just to mention is that, over the last 20 years, how much the equipment's become so available for people to do.
Right.
I remember back in college, a friend of mine wanted to make a movie, and his big plan was to get aerial shots of Boston. And I remember him actually contacting a helicopter pilot just to figure out like how much it would cost. So the helicopter pilots are going down the list of all the things. And he got to about $2,500, and that was before we even got off the ground. And
Right.
like,
Oh, boy.
have to do all kinds of. Now you just go to Best Buy, and for less than half of that, you can buy like a GPS-enabled drone with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
It's insane. Yeah, it's
Oh,
Well,
it's up.
even,
I'm in trouble with the government now.
Even mainstream directors are using iPhones for filming movies. If anyone got a chance to see Unsane, that was filmed
Yep.
completely on an iPhone.
I think
And
it's
that was on an iPhone 7. Like things have gotten a little bit better since then as well.
I mean, obviously, the quality of the picture, the quality of the equipment, what you can do. I mean, obviously, even just the technology we're on right now pretty much shows just how available it is to just collaborate with
goodness.
people and do all kinds of things. Like you could literally shoot a film in one city, put the footage on like a Google Drive or something, and somebody else could download it and edit it there.
Right.
And literally, it's just a worldwide community at this point. I've heard of people outsourcing some CGI stuff from people in foreign countries like India,
I
that
need
kind
to
of
go
thing.
to Rhode Island. I just got me a movie to Rhode Island. I'm like, Dan, I need some music. I need a sound effect, the UFO. I contacted him on Facebook, and like 4 hours later, he nailed it to me.
Exactly. I mean,
Technology's just gotten crazy.
There was
It's
also
fantastic.
there was also a Zoom horror movie this year on Shudder called Host. I think it was called The Host or something.
The host, yeah.
Yeah, that was very well done.
I think
And the
we
way
could
it ended
probably
was
do it
very
better, though.
Zoom-like. It was pretty cool, funny.
Well,
Yeah,
there's
there's
also a romance novel called "Kissing the Coronavirus" out. So
We're going to see a lot of product that in the next year that's going to be all based on Corona because everybody's got all
Right.
kinds of.
Well, they're already starting. There's
Trauma.
a couple of other horror movies that are based on one guy starting to have his own psychotic moments because he's stuck inside during quarantine.
Right.
So they're already starting to happen.
Corona, the motion picture.
hold my Corona.
And then the sequel,
It
Corona.
makes you wonder
Corona
why
Lime.
people put up with that, like seeing movies with like people with masks on and stuff. Like if we're just like we're gonna accept that, or we're just like we're over this. Like we
Well,
don't
it's
wanna
funny. I was talking with Jamie recently doing a superhero movie where it's like the superhero wears a mask, but he ends up blending in because everybody's wearing a mask.
I think it's going to be one of those period piece elements. I think in 15, 20 years from now, after the passing of all this, that would be one of them things that you can say, oh, this is supposed to take place in 2021 or whatever.
Right.
I think it's just another theatrical element piece for the future.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think like anything that's being made that's Corona related is going to probably be like dismissed. But like later on, 10 years from now, when it's like novel to look back on and say, hey, remember when? That's when it's going to become popular.
It's going to be like neon, a Dayglow Neon from the 80s.
Oh, gosh.
There's going to be a Stranger Things version of the coronavirus. There's going to be like, it's going to be crazy.
We're in the upside down. Put your masks on. So, Skip, actually, I believe I met you at a beatnik show.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
you
and
bought a copy
still
of
have.
Diary of the Black Widow.
Yes, and you signed it. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
That
That was actually, it's funny because that's actually still one of my favorite projects besides my Sherlock Holmes graphic novel that I've worked on. So, if
Yes.
but you, as we mentioned earlier, you've done films, but you also host this fantastic, film festival that dedicated in the memory of your daughter as well. But
Yes.
if you want to tell us a little bit about how you've been getting through the pandemic, any projects you're working on or projects that are favorites of yours.
The getting I did the Corman thing as well.
Oh.
Just to do something.
Exactly.
You know, I had no, I usually have no illusions anyway. But it was just me. I mean, literally just me. I played all the roles. There was no one else in it. And it was fun. So the projects I've been working on during the coronavirus are my kitchen. Like I renovated my kitchen. Like literally.
The Kitchen, the movie.
Yes, that's
We're
it.
moving on to the dining room, part 2.
We need a tour here. We need a virtual tour here.
Yeah. I was in the middle of shooting something. And then, actually last summer when COVID seemed to have leveled off and everything was outside. And I do have people wearing masks, but we don't mention it. It's just that there's a pandemic and that's it. It has nothing else to do with the story. But then it picked up again. So we haven't got back to shooting it, and we probably won't until May to finish it. That's called Femicide. It's interesting. You ask what are the favorite things that I've worked on, and that's the hard question, because when I watch them, if they're at a festival, I sit there and I'm cringing through parts of it.
I understand. I'm like that.
Do you always
Yeah.
feel like you're critiquing yourself as you're watching your work?
Yes. Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah, I can't. So, favorite's probably the oldest because I'm that farther removed from it. But especially the features. There's stuff in the features. I'm like I said, I started this with a one-man show back in 2005. It was called Catholic Surviving Abuse and Other Dead End Roads. So I'm going to bum everybody out for a while now.
I'm Catholic. It's okay.
Yeah, well, I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor.
I'm already bummed out.
I'm a survivor of clergy sexual abuse.
Oh, okay.
No, now I am bummed out. Right?
Yeah.
So, and I actually started off doing visual art too. I did a lot of charcoal, did a lot of painting. And I had an exhibit at a little gallery, I believe it or not, in Uxbridge. And this couple came through and said, you've got to get this to New York. And I'm thinking, if I could get my art in New York, it would be in New York.
It would be there. Yeah.
I have no idea what you're saying to me. And I had like this, and this is such an old reference. I don't know who'll get it, but I had that Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland moment. I'll put on a show.
We got it.
We got
it. I started to write a one-man show. So this was in June of 2005. I started to write the one-man show. And that December, I was literally on stage in New York doing this, having never done this before.
That's amazing.
So I was completely out of my mind with that.
Right.
Like jumping right in the fire.
Well, the night before, I said,
terrified.
to myself, what the hell am I doing? I have no idea why I'm here. Then it was at the Bowery Poetry Club, a little, I think 70-seat black box theater. And then the guy who owned that was friends with Jimmy Tingle. So then Jimmy Tingle picked it up, and I had it in Somerville at his theater for a month. And he unbelievably graciously, every night afterwards would give me notes. So the show just got a lot better by the time it wrapped. So that's how I got into all of this. So I'm saying that, so, when you're on stage, it's all talks and words. So when I write a script, even for a horror movie, I'm just so goddamn wordy. So I'll sit watching my movies thinking,
I can appreciate that.
God, shut up.
Almost like Kevin Williamson.
Say that. So some of them I've actually gone out of my way to have, like Ave Maria, no dialogue, nothing is said, just to see if I could do it. I did another short, Out of the Night, just no dialogue, because I had to train myself to stop talking. This is film, show don't tell, and I'm doing both all the time.
Yeah.
So my favorite, it's very hard to say. I can say what seems to be right now most people's favorite is this short Priest Hunter, which I'm I've been going to the Fantasia Film Festival because they have the Frontiers Film Market. So I'm going up there trying to pitch things. So I did a quick 5-minute proof of concept of this thing, and I grabbed my neighbor, who's never acted. Come on, play this guy, and we shot it in like 4 hours, and I was done the next day, and then I just no one picked it up there, but then all of these festivals, they're loving it, and again it seems to be. Italy seems to have an affinity for my work. I did this
fantastic.
I did this short Ave Maria, and getting into clergy abuse. Almost and every one of most of my movies, a priest gets killed. That's just a given. So and in Ave Maria,
it's therapy.
It is. Well, sort of. People have asked me, is this cathartic for me? And no, it isn't. I think
it's a way of dealing with it, though.
I'm going to say I've dealt with it.
Yeah. Okay.
But I still get emails, weekly from people, because I've been so out there with my story, who then start to tell me their story, because I'm like the first safe person to talk to.
Right. Absolutely.
Because I've put it out there, and I don't give a shit. I mean, I don't care. I mean, I don't care if anybody likes my movies. Actually, I judge the success of my movie by the amount of people that walk out that I've offended.
That's cool.
I did something right. So this Ave Maria, there's a singer, Alessandro Morsetti, who did this beautiful version of Ave Maria. It's actually not that beautiful. So I have these women in the woods, because that's so New England, and a man's tied to a chair, and then they castrate him, and then his blood falls into a chalice, and then they make him drink his blood, and then
family film.
And
family
it is all that's all I make.
Rated G.
And then all the time they're playing an old '78 record of this guy singing it, and then I just put a card in there that explains that Morsetti was castrated at the age of 8 to sing for the Pope.
Wow.
So and then at the very end, they're burning this guy's clothes in a fire, and it's a priest's collar. So there's a fringe hardcore horror festival in Italy called the Interior Horror Festival, and it got accepted. So I went, and it's in Rome. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to Rome with this movie. And it won the audience award for Best Picture. And at the end, I mean, there were people like cheering, and this one guy literally yelled out, "Burn down the Vatican and all the saints in it." I'm like,
holy mackerel.
Hey, calm down.
Whoa, struck a nerve.
Slow down. Yeah. And I thought it would be different. I thought, oh my God, it's such a Catholic country, and the horror stories, I mean, they know everything. They know the history of the Vatican, and it was Mussolini that actually made it a country, for the Vatican Bank. There's not good history behind a lot of that.
Oh, there's another one. They really, when they finally hung him, they took it out on him to the point where it's like they tried to pick up his body, and they couldn't, because it's like his head would cave in.
Everybody got a shot.
So,
They just needed a spatula.
Basically, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was the piñata for the country.
Yeah. Well,
He kind of earned it.
I'm gonna say yes. The trains
El
still
Duce
ran on time
Pinata.
after they trains ran on time without him too. So
Oh, hell yeah.
I think it was fine. But I guess I've even got off so many tangents I forgot the question. But
No, but actually you answered it. I mean, I've just known so many people who have dealt with, who have been the victims of abuse. I mean, something like this, it's like, I think, they would understand this, and just like sort of getting your feelings out there. I mean,
It's always good
really
that someone knows that there's someone else there that they can talk to.
Yeah, because it's like so many people are told, it's like, are treated like it's like, it's like, well, did you do something or it's your fault? It's like, no, the person who was the adult, that's their fault.
No, that's right. There's this,
and I think people need to know that.
Well, a lot of artists obviously, they channel that. They
Yeah.
take what happened to them as kids, and they like, if you take a look at, for example, and I was watching something about this, Roger Waters' The Wall,
Oh, yeah.
how Pink Floyd, they used, that was a musical album, and it moved into a film, an experimental film at that, and it really deals with a lot of issues that he had in being
Well, that film was actually a mix between him and the lead singer Sid Barrett, who dealt with a mental breakdown.
So, I mean, they were just putting that stuff out there for people. And, even today, it's probably one of the most influential experimental films ever made. So, a very good example of what you've obviously done with your films.
Absolutely.
And it's awesome to hear that that's such a success and
it just struck such a nerve, too.
Hey, bravo.
Thank you. Well,
so, Skip, did you know the Father Porter story? Remember Father Porter? It was like, yeah,
Fall River.
It was on prime time. That came on, and my boss at the time was one of the altar boys that got abused, and he was on, and that's how I learned about it. And then I reached out and I talked to him and stuff. But yeah, that was my first exposure to it, not from myself directly, but from someone I used to work for, and I realized how much it affected him, and had a conversation with him, after the fact about that. But that was like one of the first stories that broke about that sort of thing. I think it was like 20 plus years ago, that story.
Well, even older, because when that made the news, everyone thought it was like this big isolated incident, which obviously it wasn't.
No.
There is part of Priest Hunter and part of this other one I'm working on, Femicide. There's in Whitensville, Massachusetts, there was a treatment center called the House of Affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, set up for priests who had, issues, and some of the alcoholism, stuff like that. And the guy who ran it, Father Kane, decided, really pushed that he wanted to treat pedophiles there. And this is in the 70s. So this is how much they already know how bad it is.
Right.
And so they started treating them there, and the Boston Archdiocese gave them a lot of money. They bought this beautiful building, one of the old mill owners in Whitensville, a gorgeous house. Kane never had a degree in psychology. Kane was a pedophile, and all they did was network kids in this part of the Blackstone Valley.
Oh my gosh!
Right, and so I tackled that issue, and I was one of them. And I tackled,
oh my God!
I tackled that issue in these things, because they have there are files that have to have been in this place on all of them.
Wow. What part of, I'm just curious, because I actually used to work in Whitensville as a public access coordinator, because out in Northbridge, that's where I work. And they got lots of mill buildings over there. So that whole town is like kind of crazy. Yeah,
this was on Hill Street. So it was, the little wealthy top of the mill owner, top of the hill.
Okay.
Place. So yeah.
I probably passed that place by work. The closest I could ever say about the father, the priest situation is my last name is Shanley. So everybody kept on asking me if I was related to Paul Shanley, and I kept on telling no.
Leave me the hell alone.
Well, the Shanley story is interesting to me, because I had no contact with him, but I if you saw Spotlight, there was a guy in it, Phil Saviano. He's the one who had all the files and kept bringing them there. And Phil's actually from Worcester County, and I became friends with him when I came forward. And he used to run SNAP meetings, and he called me, "You have to come to this meeting. You have to come to this meeting." And I went, and a woman, she was telling her story. It's SNAP is it's called Survivors Network for those abused by priests. Like SNAP, that is like the worst. SNAP, like, what is that? That is terrible to me. That's
right.
But anyway, so she's telling her story. She was brutally abused by this priest, and she became a drug addict and was homeless. Everything. And then, like a lot of people do, she actually turned to the church for help. So this priest took her in, got her clean and sober, got her back in school, got her a job, and her life has been wonderful since. He literally put her on the path to healing, and the priest who put her on the path to healing was Father Shanley.
Oh wow!
What?
Right? Yeah, and she told this story in a room where Shanley's victims were sitting.
Wow!
Oh no!
and that actually made me realize that there is this because there's this fight between Catholics basically and survivors. If I used to go to protest, and if you're protesting in front of a church, I've seen people like almost aim their cars at us because they're so furious, and I kept thinking, but can't they see what happened to us? But at the same time, but like let's say Father Kane, is whatever he did with kids. At the same time, he helped a family while their mother was dying. I mean, he did real priestly duties that really brought peace to some people. So my story doesn't invalidate their story. And I think until we can get to that point, it's just going to continue this way because it's kind of like politics in the United States.
Wow.
Because
It's
everyone
two
has a story. Yeah.
and there
Duality of man.
yeah. And I don't think that they, I think that they might, some of them are doing this because it's the right thing to do. And not, I keep hearing, well, predators do this stuff to hide stuff. And I'm thinking, I don't know. I don't think anything is always that simple, that black
It's
and
not
white.
just, you just took the words right out of my mouth.
So
Definitely a
hopefully this
crazy
is
issue.
like the uplifting part of the show, right?
No,
Yes,
actually, I'm
totally.
I'm so glad you guys came on tonight because it's funny because it's like just nice talking to just like these, really imaginative, talented folk. Because I was just thinking recently about, there was an interview with Will Ferrell a while back, and they talked about, people, disliking his, films. And he says, oh, I don't care what people think about my films, as long as, as long as my friends and I like it. And I just thought to myself, you know what, it's like, I understand the statement, but at the same time, it's kind of crass because I know so many talented folk that are independent filmmakers who would love to have to tell a really good story and know how to tell a story, that would love to, do a big movie and not just, like do another, just Holmes and Watson.
Right.
Like you
Yeah.
got,
Don't say that.
you guys write tonight. And so it just like
Elona Holmes.
Oh
I
God,
didn't-
how many fourth wall breaks can we do in a movie? In just one movie, how many fourth wall breaks?
I think that, however, in the independent world, especially with filmmaking, I think that there's a certain level of just ingenuity that doesn't exist in Hollywood. I mean, obviously, we don't have the same budgetary resources. We don't have the same resources for actors. We don't have the same resources for props or wardrobe. So we have to be a little bit more creative. I think that when you take a look at like early Hollywood, like I'm talking like 1920s when, film studios were literally just like next to a farm, and they'd be like, hey, we need to use a background for something. Okay, let's use the farm next to us. And that's what they do. And, I think that's really kind of the way independent filmmaking is today. I think, however, with just how much movies have changed over the last year, the way that they're being marketed and everything else like that, that Hollywood's going to have to start kind of changing the dynamic a little bit and doing stuff that's a little bit more independent minded. And I think that, they're going to really try to tap into that, which I don't know if they can because they're so institutionalized within their own systems, especially with the fact that they're used to these huge blockbuster budgets. But I think that when you see like independent, like you see a lot of studios starting to branch out into local filmmaking here in Massachusetts in particular, you see like a lot of independent like movies being made for Netflix and that sort of thing. That kind of does bring some opportunities out to people.
well, going around the room, maybe, wondering, for, the guys in the room, what do you think this means for,
What does it
going alphabetically? What do you think it means for like the current state of it, with the way movies are made and stuff like that?
How do you feel about the whole being able to have a movie in the theater and in home at the same time?
What does it mean for an independent filmmaker? Maybe starting with, starting alphabetically with Andy, as an independent filmmaker.
Well, I mean, I'm open to any option to have people see your film, but realistically, that kind of change you're talking about is either not going to happen or it's not going to happen for a while. I mean, there's enough formats for what we do. I would rather watch 20 short films than any feature-length film. And there's venues all over for that. There's YouTube. There's the internet. So I mean, you're asking me a question that who cares?
But you gave a great answer. You gave a great answer to it.
I would only add to that is that this is your TV now. This is it right here.
It's just the availability is really
and
I think there are much more avenues to get an independent short film out, and there's much more accessibility to it. I mean, there's more people who out there now today who will watch a short film than there were 15 years ago. Trust me, I know this for an absolute fact.
I mean, there's tons of channels
I've
on
stood
YouTube.
out there and I've asked people. I've done a poll. And I've taken the numbers.
Yes, I have.
You can take that to the bank, Jamie.
Absolutely.
So yeah, Bob, what do you think is the future here?
I'm just glad that the found footage kind of horror thing's going away, though there's been some really good footage about that. And maybe we go to the Zoom thing. I think the future is more like serial content, kind of like podcasts or these. Yeah. I think a lot of serial content that can be started on YouTube. I do want to say one thing. There's one film this past year, this feature film that really gave me hope. It was called The Father. It was about Anthony Hopkins. I don't know if you guys saw it, but he plays a dementia patient. And what was so unique about it was it really looked at, most dementia films are from the caregiver's perspective. And this movie was originally based on a play, then made into a film, but it was from the dementia patient's perspective. So the confusion of, being in a room and then someone walking in and your daughter is someone else, or you're not in the same apartment, or you're in a different room. It was, and the good thing was it was only like 90 minutes. It wasn't like 2 hours. It was one of those movies where I rented it and I actually paid $19 to rent it. But I actually was like, God, this is actually worth it, because it was so, having gone through that with my mom, it was so brilliant to see how that was handled. And so I was it was one of those rare times I saw a movie just done totally different, breaking down the four walls or whatever you want to say. So I just wanted to throw I think it's going to serial content, but I found hope that there was one film that blew me away this year, the way it was so creative and the perspective that it had on something that affects so many people. So that would be my input.
Well, I think you're right with the serial aspect, because now if you look at what Disney Plus has been doing with WandaVision and now The Falcon, they've taken their big main characters or Mandalorian, exactly, and they've brought them all into a serial format,
like the old serials from the 1930s and 40s.
Exactly. Yep. Commander Cody.
Yep. Nipple, nipple, tweak, tweak, fly, fly, fly.
And I'm off. Oh, I love MST3K.
Josh, your thoughts on that, or?
On
just the future of movie, just like movie making, especially as an independent filmmaker,
Right. Well, I think through like the streaming and things like YouTube and things like that, now the stuff that we make can get out much easier. Like if there was a YouTube when I was like a teenager, like I feel like I would have been putting stuff on there constantly. I mean, like
absolutely,
little films and stuff like that.
We will continue our discussion next week. On behalf of Jamie and Andrew, thank you for listening to The Mental Suppository. Until next time, this is Bret Herholtz saying,
I knew I'd disturb you.
The Mental Suppository has been produced by Bret Herholtz and Jamie Billings and distributed by M the Media Project. Theme music generously donated by Mr. B, the Gentleman Rhymer. Visit his webpage at gentlemanrhymer.com. We would love to hear from our fans. Email us at mentalsuppository@gmail.com.